My talent is cheese. Welcome to this week's video. This week I thought we'd chat about crochet in the 1920s. And why the 1920s? Well, listen on. Once again, hello. I hope that you are doing well and that you've had a good crafty past couple of weeks. You're keeping sane, you're keeping healthy, and if you need to disassociate, I hope you've been disassociating just fine. I myself have to admit to a certain lack of crafting on my end. Well, not lack of crafting per se, but a lot of work. A lot of work behind the scenes to design new patterns, to work with some yarn companies so that I, get some commissions going and all of that, and I can't share anything of that with you. So I thought this week we'd talk about something a little bit different. And of course, as is unusual for my podcast, there is a story behind today's topic. And it all starts not this weekend just past, but the last weekend. Because today is Monday, I am filming on a Monday, in case that interests you. So, what happened? Last week, on a Sunday, my husband headed to a Miami con to see the Trash Taste podcast, which were in Miami. And I found myself with a lot of spare time to just binge YouTube and craft. Part of my YouTube binging included this video, wherever it shows up, from Abby Cox, and it was very interesting, first of all. So if you are looking for some new video / listening material, I highly suggest it, because she made some very interesting points on, how Gen Zs are essentially the new flappers. It was a very interesting point. And throughout all this conversation of, fashion and civil unrest and all these other things, I just found myself wondering, what were people crocheting in the 1920s? Were they wearing crochet? What was up with crochet in the 1920s? And so I endeavored to do some research. But before we get into that, well, why crochet in the 1920s? I want to answer why not crochet. We'd love to learn more about it. But there are some little nuances that made me very curious about crochet in the 1920s. Historically speaking, the 20s, or the years post-World War I, were years of nonconformity and civil unrest. Women's fashions start taking a more masculine look. There has been an exploration on the standard gender norms that have been practiced throughout centuries. We start seeing the emancipation for white women. There's also revolutionary arts, and things just start kind of delving into the surreal, or the absurd is a more appropriate term. But I'm just gonna put it very simply and very unjustly, a lot happened in the 20s. And so, as with decades where we have a lot of civil unrest and a lot of explorations of gender and what it means to be male, what it means to be female, we saw revolution in fashion where women's silhouettes start taking on a more manly turn, which it's not great for all female body shapes, because I feel there was a little bit of body shaming involved. Some women are very naturally curvy and they probably had a very difficult time trying to fit into the accepted norms of the 20s, fashion-wise, I mean. But anyway, so with this idea in my head that you have all these revolutionary things happening, I just really wondered, was crochet a part of this fashion revolution? As with any question, I just started with a simple Google search. And I looked for patterns, crochet patterns from the post-war years, 1917 specifically, 1920s, 1925, anything that I could find. And I would once again direct you to the, oh my god, I just forgot the name, but I'm gonna link it down below. It's basically a historical knitting / crochet archive, and people sent in their patterns that they maybe had originally or they found from their grandmothers from this time, and they are digitized and available for public consumption, no cost to you, and under the idea, right, that these you'll use them for free, but you won't like try to sell these PDF scans. Anyway, so the point was that I started looking into that. I started trying to find magazines from the era, and still, you know, didn't really go and try and see if any museum collections had pieces, crochet pieces from the 1920s or anything like that. But based on what I found from these original post-war crochet patterns, I was just the teeniest bit disappointed. Okay, let me explain. So, essentially what I found in these patterns was not like the revolutionary art of crochet that I was expecting, but just that crochet or its use hadn't really changed from what we, or the knowledge we have from like 1840s, which is when we see the first printed crochet pattern. Now we're all aware of crochet's dubious history. We know it existed before that. There is a mountainous region, I believe it's in the Middle East, that I'll link the article that I read down below. It's an article from Interweave that explores the traditions of slip stitch colorwork crochet from this specific part of the world. And we also have slip stitch in Scotland. It was called shepherd's knitting. So we do know that crochet has a rich history. It just hadn't been documented. And here I just want to pose a little question. So we know that whilst I may have found the items of crochet disappointing, it is not a diss on any of these crochet arts, because I've done many of them myself, and of course I also put a lot of value in crochet and the ability that it gave women to kind of earn extra income. And that is something that we should never forget, that, you know, these crochets and knittings, they were mostly known as needlework, and it was considered a woman's kind of area. So what if the reason we don't have a lot of information on crochet is because it was considered women's work and it wasn't given a just page in history? I mean, is that the reason? I don't know. It would be wonderful to talk about that with you. What do you think about crochet's dubious history? Do you think it's given to the fact that it's been considered primarily a woman's work and thus not worthy of being written down? By the way, I do not agree with that. As I said, I value crochet a lot for its history and for its the ability that it's given women to express themselves and to earn a living, because Irish lace crochet, you know, that gave the women kind of a way to earn independence, to earn extra income. And I myself am exploring crochet as a business venture to create my own business, to create my own income. So I put a lot of value in crochet. So I don't want you to think that I think that crochet is not worthy of being history, because I greatly disagree with whoever thinks that needle art shouldn't be studied as a way of influences in fashion, or, you know, through textile history or anything like that. Geez, if I could go to college again and like take textile history and have crochet and been given examples of crochet to study, I'd be a very happy gal indeed. But anyway, let's get back to what I found on crochet in the 1920s. If I was just the tiniest bit disappointment that there was no revolutionary art in crochet, it is still fascinating to view crochet from the standpoint of women during this time. And I'm using women because that's what's primarily been associated with needlework during this time. I am not saying that crochet shouldn't be practiced, or knitting, by the way, or embroidery, or any needlecraft shouldn't be practiced by whoever wants to practice it, because it is a freeing form of expression. Rant aside, it's fascinating to see what items our grandmothers could have, or great-grandmothers could have potentially made and worn during this period. And what we find, or at least what I found in these original patterns, is a lot of filet crochet. So it's literally crochet is in the details. I crack myself up, but you will not find Clarissa in any comedic club because my talent is cheesy humor and dark humor. But anyway, crochet is literally in the details, and what I mean by that is that we find a lot of insertion. So we're seeing a lot of fine crochet thread work. What I'm imagining is mostly crochet cotton thread, just because it gives it more stability and less stretch than wool, fine wools would have had. And also we find a lot of filet crochet, a lot of examples for patterns for filet crochet yokes and open stitches, as well as lace insertions or filet crochet insertions on the sleeves or anything like that. We have, of course, a lot of examples of patterns for crochet baby wear, crochet slippers. We even have some ties during the 1920s that I thought that was fun. I have to double check. I think the tie was crochet and not knit. So as I said, we're seeing a lot of lace insertion crochet for things that we would use every day. So crochet bags, insertion lace for nightgowns, insertion lace for bed pillows, bed linens, and things like that. So it's part of these people's everyday history. Crochet, in a way, it's part of the lives. It's what was placed below the candle to make sure the table didn't burn, to protect the table. It's what made gorgeous, beautiful nightgowns. But in addition to that, I did find some garments. And what I found is, specifically, I'm going to read and reference the description for a garment from Corticelli Lessons in Crochet number 5, but as the PDF section, it's PDF 1, and it is literally crocheted waist number 444. Tell me this is not a crop top. This is basically a crop top, and it is beautiful. I'm just gonna read straight from the description of the pattern. I will link this pattern down below for you, of course, because as you well know, in the description box is where you will find the links to everything I talk about. So, the woman who is fond of dainty needlework will find a fascination in making this charming garment and a satisfaction in possessing a dressy waist developed entirely through her own efforts. It should not, however, be undertaken by the amateur worker. The pattern is simple, but care should be taken to have the stitches even and the work neatly done. It is made with a drop shoulder and convertible collar and fastens down with the front with large Egyptian beads and crocheted loops. So I'm sharing a picture of this top on the screen, as you can see while I'm reading the description. And do I want to make it? Yes, I do. I want to make this crochet waist. I think it's got beautiful stitching, and just like the pattern says, it's very delicate. I love the combination of subtle ruffling on the cuffs and also down the middle. I've been meaning actually to design a top similar to this one, so I think it would be really great if I actually managed to decipher the pattern and make it, and then just grade it and have other people make it. I think Susan Crawford does this, where she takes vintage patterns and she grades them and uses modern yarns to kind of show you how you can do this today, right? And she sells it, so I thought it would be a great idea to undertake this endeavor of attempting to crochet a waistcoat with these, I believe this pattern is from 1917, with these instructions, and sharing the results with you, and definitely, if it's successful, doing grading and math and all that to see what I come up with. Now, tell me what you think the pattern is crocheted with. I'm convinced it's crocheted with what today we would call a crochet number thread, or crochet number 10, Aunt Lydia's number 10 specifically. I'm gonna have to do some reading, because I do know that I think it's pre-1970s, crochet hooks were different for cotton yarns and wool yarns, so the sizing would have differed. And that's just so cool to learn to me anyway. In the end, where does crochet stand in the 1920s? Well, based on these patterns that I found, as I said, I would definitely have to do more research into this. But based on these patterns that I have found, crochet is primarily geared towards women. It is still very interesting to read about and see how people in the 20s would have used crochets as part of their everyday life, because that is one of my missions with this Crochet Cakes channel and brand. It's to make crochet a part of your everyday, something you can have in your wardrobe that'll last for years and that you'll enjoy piecing together. And as part of this insertion lace topic, I wanted to talk about a new pattern that I am releasing. High hopes for this Friday. Realistically, it'll probably be for mid next week because I still need to translate the pattern. As you guys know, I write patterns both in English and in Spanish. So I need to translate the pattern and then make sure my video add-ons for the paid for PDFs are all, I was going to say up to date, but you know, they're all edited, and make sure that I have finalized all of the tech editing that my tech editor made comments on, as well as making sure it all makes sense, writing a description, putting up a blog post, all these things that go into getting out a pattern for you guys. So realistically, I do not think it'll be released this week, but look forward to it definitely next week. And you guys know there's an elephant in the room that makes me look like a Sunny Delight commercial, but we are rolling with it. So, what I'm wearing is a finished object. Actually, it's a finished pattern in terms that it is written, but it is the one that's in the process of coming out next week. And this is the third rendition of the summer fan top. Now, the original rendition is on the mannequin, but I forgot to uncover her, so I'm just going to insert pictures. And the original rendition was made with a cotton cashmere yarn and a T-shaped, but I really wanted to use insertion lace, or what I would call insertion lace, which was a lacy stitch for the top yoke part of the sweater, because this was greatly inspired by my exploration into Edwardian clothing, how it was made, and specifically the Edwardian lingerie gown. So the Edwardian lingerie gowns had a lot of lace, and that is not an understatement. You can find some recreations or historical bounding recreations on YouTube that I will also link down below, so you can kind of have an idea how these lace gowns would have been constructed. But essentially what we have is lace panels that are sewn together, and they go all the way to the top to create a high collar, and then they are buttoned, of course, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get in the gown. So this is what I wanted to kind of incorporate into my design this time around. I wanted to have the lace insertion as the original pattern has it, but I also wanted to bring the neck high enough so that you could button it in the back, and it would create just a kind of little keyhole implement in the back as well. So that is what I've done with this design. I am very happy with it. This is the fourth actually summer fan top, or what I will be calling the Edwardian lace top. Let me know what you would name this pattern. I haven't really decided on a name, and since it is coming out next week, you can help me name this pattern in the comments section below. So I'm thinking Edwardian lace top, just because as I said, the Edwardian lace insertion influences this top has. But if you have any better ideas, or any ideas at all, just please comment down below and let me know. So you've seen a green version of this top before. It's been made since December 2020, and yeah, it's taken me this long to actually write up the pattern and grade it. The pattern is meant to be crocheted with drops, saffron, which is a 100% cotton yarn and a 3.5mm hook. But for purposes of testing measurements and numbers and all that, I actually just used what I had in my stash. And it was a cotton cashmere blend like the original pattern, and I crocheted this version. Now, as you'll notice, the original pattern is meant to have sleeves. I do not have sleeves, and that is because I ran out of yarn. Yes, I had enough yarn to complete one sleeve, but I didn't have enough to complete both sleeves, and then I quite fancied the idea of going sleeveless. But it does do you a little bit of a disservice in the sense that, as I mentioned about the crochet patterns in the 1920s or post-war crochet patterns, there was a lot of lace insertions in the yokes as well as the sleeves. So the sleeves for this top do have a little lace insert right before they finish on a tiny little ruffle, which is also a nod to the eras gone by. So yes, I am very, very happy with this design. I'll definitely keep you posted in my newsletter. You already saw this top if you are subscribed to my newsletter, and you'll definitely be the first to know if you're in my newsletter when the pattern is actually published, because you get a little nice notification that says cling. What does it say? Yeah, that I've posted a pattern. So that is it from me today in terms of crochet in the 1920s and definitely lace insertion speeches, as well as upcoming patterns. Things that I've been reading, I think I already mentioned the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. I'm very slowly reading it, not because it's not interesting, but honestly, I haven't been reading that much lately. Yeah, so in terms of crochet and books, that is all that I have to share with you today. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comment section down below. Remember that there is where you will find the links to the Abby Cox video that kind of inspired this rabbit hole of crochet in the 1920s. You will also find a linked video on Edwardian lingerie gowns, just so you can see the end result and where the inspiration originally came from. And you will also find the original link to the summer fan top, which is behind me and I showed you a picture of, in case you are new here and wanted to check that out. So if you are here with me still, thank you so much for watching, taking time out of your day to spend a little bit of crafty time with me, as well as with all the other people that are watching this along with you. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for being here and just keeping up with your support. If you are a new viewer, then I hope you liked this, and definitely if you want to subscribe, then I encourage you to do so. Please do so. Definitely comment, and yeah, I will see you in 2 weeks' time with another video. Bye!